Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really ancient story that honestly feels like it could have been written for right now. It gives us this incredible blueprint for how we heal when it feels like our whole world is shattered. It's all about the radical power of quiet repair. So here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at what happens when a world shatters. Then, we'll talk about a very different, quieter kind of repair. We'll see it in action through loyalty that crosses all kinds of boundaries, look at how generosity can come from a place of power, and finally, see how all of this leads from a place of total emptiness to one of fullness.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off with a question I think a lot of us can relate to. When a loss is so huge that you don't even have words for it, what do you do? Where do you even begin?
This right here, this is the feeling at the very heart of the book of Ruth. It's all centered on a woman named Naomi, and for her, the world doesn't just crack, it completely collapses. And look, this isn't just one single tragedy. It's this relentless pileup of catastrophes. First, a famine forces her family to leave their home. Then, while they're in a foreign land, her husband dies. And then boom, boom, both of her sons die too. She's left with absolutely nothing and returns home completely empty. Now, this is what's so fascinating. Naomi doesn't try to put a brave face on it. She literally renames herself Mara, which means bitter. And, this isn't seen as some kind of failure of faith. It's her being brutally honest about her trauma. And that honesty, it's the essential starting point for everything that's about to happen. Okay, so if your world has shattered into a million pieces, how in the world do you start to put it back together? The story gives us an answer, but it's not some loud, flashy miracle. It's something much, much quieter, more grounded. The entire story hinges on this one powerful Hebrew concept, hesed. You can see the definition here. It's the steadfast, embodied loyalty that goes way beyond just doing your duty. Think of it not as a feeling, but as loyalty in action. It's costly, it's persistent, and it's something you do day in and day out, especially for those who are most vulnerable. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. The story kind of rejects the idea of some cosmic repair, a spectacular intervention from the heavens. Instead, it offers us this grounded repair. Healing isn't going to come from some cosmic thunder. It happens stitch by stitch through daily faithfulness in the most ordinary place you can imagine, a quiet barley field. So, what does this loyalty, this hesed, actually look like when you're living it? Well, we see it perfectly personified in Naomi's daughter-in-law, a woman named Ruth. Ruth, who isn't even from Israel, she's a foreigner from Moab, makes this absolutely radical promise to her grieving mother-in-law. And let's be clear, she has nothing to gain from this. In fact, she's turning her back on her own people, her own religion, her own future, to stick with a woman who has lost everything. This shows us that hesed is not some grand one-time gesture. It's a discipline. It starts with that costly promise, sure, but then she crosses borders as a total outsider. Then she does the back-breaking daily work of gleaning in the fields just to survive. She doesn't just say she's loyal, she performs it, day after day after day, bringing food home and providing care. But here's the thing. Ruth's actions don't just happen in a vacuum. Her story collides with another character, a man named Boaz, who shows us how power can actually become a part of the healing process. Boaz is a wealthy, powerful landowner. He's the guy in charge, and he shows us what hesed looks like from a position of strength. He could have just ignored Ruth, this poor foreigner on his land, but he doesn't. He sees her. He uses his power to protect her, he includes her, he provides for her, and he consistently goes above and beyond what the law required him to do. And that right there is the key. His ethical leadership makes all the difference. Boaz's field becomes this place of social repair for one reason, because he chooses to make it that way. He intentionally turns his private property into a kind of sanctuary, a safe space where healing can actually begin for someone who's incredibly vulnerable. So now we get to see how these quiet, individual acts of loyalty and generosity start to ripple outward. They don't just transform one person's grief, they end up changing the future of an entire community. Remember Naomi at the beginning, the woman who called herself bitter and empty? Well, here, at the end of the story, her own neighbors are witnessing her transformation. They look at her and say that the steadfast love of this one foreign woman has brought her a fullness greater than anything she lost.
And this is where the story just delivers its most jaw-dropping twist. It goes from this very personal story of recovery to something of, believe it or not, world historical importance.
I mean, just look at this incredible legacy. This whole journey, which started with Ruth, the outsider, the refugee, it leads to her having a son with Boaz. And that son has a son. And that grandson, he becomes the father of King David, the most revered king in all of Israel's history. Her quiet, daily faithfulness didn't just mend a broken family. It literally wove the future of a nation.
So what can we take from this story? Well, the story gives us this incredibly powerful and practical model for our own lives. It teaches us to just sit with grief instead of rushing to fix it, to practice those small, consistent acts of care, to recognize the incredible gifts that the outsider brings, and to use whatever power or influence we have to protect the vulnerable. It's all a reminder that real healing comes from that quiet, steady presence.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. What if the most profound, most holy work we can do isn't about the grand gestures, the thunder and lightning? What if it's just the quiet, steady repair of the world, one small, faithful act at a time, in the barley fields of our own lives?